Welcome to the Fellowship Podcast, a place where we have gospel conversations about loving God and transforming lives by following Jesus through life-on-life relationships. Thanks for tuning in. But welcome to the Fellowship Podcast. I'm excited to be here with Janel Rodriguez. She is a longtime friend. I actually knew her as a youth back in the day, now as a mom, and as the leader, primarily her and Brandon with Forever 15 Project. And we just want to talk about that story and talk about all that God has done through the midst of just tragedy and things of that nature. So can you tell us how Forever 15 kind of started?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me here. And a quick funny story. On my way here, I was taking my niece to a dentist appointment, and she asked me, who you do? And I said, Coach. And she's like, yeah, my mom was talking about how y'all have known him since y'all were like in high school or middle school. And I was like, yeah, he was our youth pastor. And I was like, it's kind of weird, when I think about, I was like 14 at that time and he was like 20, 21. I was like, but now we're both in our 40s together. Like,
I'm in the 50s.
Okay.
It's okay, though. I don't know that. You're still young. Yeah.
Okay, well, I thought you hadn't hit 50 yet, so.
No, I'm past that. But Tara and I were so young when we were with you guys, right? I think I was 23. She was 20, I think, when we started. And we didn't know what we were doing. I can't believe.
Oh, it was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun.
We had a blast, like squeezing everybody in the Mustang, getting to the house, and, your older brother, Eric, and breaking his knee on a ski. I mean, we had so many just memories over the years, but I wasn't barefoot as much back then.
No.
That was something God called me to a little bit later. But even your niece was talking about that night of Noah's death, me coming out barefoot, and just the first time. That's something that she remembers just from that night in there. But and Noah, just a blessing to you guys. But that also the reason that we have Forever 15 Project, right? It's just because of Noah and his amazing life, but also his entry into heaven through fentanyl and fentanyl poison and all of those different things. That's kind of how Forever 15 started, is with Noah's overdose.
Yeah, we actually didn't want to start an organization, but we knew right away we wanted to warn other parents and other students about fentanyl because we had no idea what it was. But then people started giving us money, and we're like, oh, we need to be held accountable. So we need to start an organization. So, And
it really came from fentanyl poison. What is fentanyl, and why is it such a problem in especially our community, but the world now, all of the United States for sure. But what is fentanyl, and how did it really penetrate into our community?
Yeah, so there are two types of fentanyl. There's medical grade fentanyl, which is used when you're getting a surgery. Doctors prescribe it in micrograms. I mean, it's so powerful. And then there's illicit fentanyl. And illicit fentanyl is very cheap to make because you don't have to rely on the poppy seed or the plant. You just get some chemicals together, and what the cartels can make for 10 cents, they can sell for $30 a pill, So it's a synthetic opioid, man-made.
Mm-hmm.
China sends over the precursor chemicals to Mexico, and then,
And then it's made, and then it finds its way into here. Now, that summer that Noah passed away, there were many different deaths from fentanyl that summer in our community, just in Hayes, CISD. So, tell us a little bit about Noah, and tell us a little bit about your relationship to him, and just kind of the things that led up to that night where the fentanyl poison happened.
Okay. Yeah. So Noah was my firstborn. I had him when I was 25. And I was a single mom for 4 years. That's when I met Brandon, and Noah and Brandon had become Noah's father, and the only father that he
Really
knew. And, they had a really good relationship. Obviously, being my firstborn and a boy at that, he was a total mama's boy. overall, growing up, Noah was a great kid. We never had issues with him. He started playing tackle football at the age of 4. We were just always involved in his life. Um, I always, even though, Brandon and I probably weren't living the full Christian life that we should have, I was raised that way, and I always wanted to instill those values and those morals into Noah. So I did, and um, he was just a great kid, just happy, and he was an honor student. He took honor classes. He loved A&M, wanted to go to A&M, become an engineer. Very popular. We live in a community where it's growing, but it's still fairly small,
Mm-hmm.
and, Noah played, like I said, football since he was little. So he knew all these kids from all over Buda, Kyle. So he was very popular, had the biggest smile. Um, and we really didn't start having issues with Noah until he became a teenager, or actually when COVID started. Yeah.
And that isolation away from other people, and then that kind of turn into trying to be social again and all those sort of things.
Yeah.
Just brings in temptations, right? I mean, fentanyl seems like it's one of those things that has become popular at parties and popular at different scenarios where, is it an upper or downer? Like the opioid, does it help you calm down?
What we've heard from different, doctors and chemists and agents, it just depends on your body. I think it's supposed to be a downer.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
I
it just
can't.
depends.
Yeah, it just depends. And kids aren't looking for fentanyl, right? What they're looking for are like what's called Percocet, baby blues, M30s. And these kids don't, I speak to thousands of kids, and when I ask them, do you know what a true Percocet is in its prescription form? They don't know,
Right.
They only know what a Percocet is because of the things that they listen to, the things that they're watching, music and social media.
And they have a lot of code names, right? Like the baby
Yeah.
blue, or those sort of things that don't make them realize that inside of that pill is something that could many times, especially if it's somebody not making it professionally,
Right.
can kill them.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what happened in Noah's case, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Is the this pill that was more potent than just a few more micrograms than needed to be in it is what caused his overdose.
Yeah. I mean, it takes very, very little. I mean,
Yeah.
2 milligrams,
Yeah.
Um,
And then that's really because of the ignorance of that situation is really the reason that Forever 15 project is there, is in order to be able to tell the story, to speak to people about the dangers of fentanyl, to kind of help them. So you get to go to schools, you get to go to different places. What has that been like, getting to go into schools and talk about and tell Noah's story about his life, his death, and then the dangers of fentanyl?
yeah, it's been crazy in a good way. I mean, what we intended for Hayes County only, right? We just wanted, like you mentioned earlier, we got hit bad in the summer of 22. We lost 5 students. What we intended for Hayes County only to spread awareness has gone internationally. Um, we've been all across Texas, all over the United States, into Mexico. It's been fun, exhausting, but we're not going to stop because the message is too important. And even though we're 2 years out, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are still so many people who don't know what fentanyl is.
Yeah.
And it's sad, but it just shows you like it's not being thrown in our face the way COVID was, right? We're not scaring people because there's a stigma behind it. And so Brandon and I are really trying to do everything we can to show people like
Yeah.
you can't be ignorant. Like this can happen to anyone,
Yeah.
you know?
And you can lose everything that you love so quickly. So if you were to sum up your, a normal talk that you would do to some students into a little 5-minute bubble, like what are the major messages that you're trying to get out to the students?
If you have a headache, earache, stomach ache, anything, do not take anything that your parent, your doctor, or your nurse doesn't give you. Like, in Noah's case, he got this Percocet from a friend, and I don't think his friend was trying to kill him, and I don't think anybody's friend is trying to kill them, but you just don't know if it's a true pill, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just can't trust anything nowadays. Experimenting is not that I ever experimented, but you just can't do it like you could back in the 80s or 90s, right? Your life is just too precious, and now 7 out of 10 pills are lethal. So we're done playing roulette. Like
Right.
you're gonna.
Yeah, especially if you're not getting it from a trusted source or a doctor or nurse or someone that you,
Right.
And it's hard to trust your friends because they don't know.
Yeah.
As well, right? In that message. And so that, one of the, just a few weeks ago, we had Noah's, 2-year kind of anniversary and let butterflies loose. And you told a story there that I thought was so fascinating about meeting another kid at a gas station. And can you tell us that story? Because I think it was so cool to see how God has been using Forever 15 and your testimony about Noah to affect other families and hopefully save them from similar struggles.
Yeah. So we were going to tour San Marcos Academy, and I'm a big ice chewer. So I told Brandon, hey, stop at the corner store so I can get me a cup of ice. So we stopped at this corner store, and next to it was a barbershop. Well, this kid walks out of the barbershop, walking into the 7-Eleven, and I said, man, he looks like Noah. I mean, he really didn't, but, from the side view, he kind of favored Noah. And Brandon was like, do you want me to go into the store? Because I don't want you to be crying in there. And I was like, no, I got this. So I went into the store and I start following this kid around. What is he buying? What is he doing? Right. And he's looking at all the things Noah would look at, Gushers and Takis and Slurpees. So I told him, I said, hey, get whatever you want. I want to buy you your snacks. And he was like, what? And I said, please just get anything you want. I said, you remind me of my son who passed away. I want to buy you your snacks. And he was like, okay. He ended up just getting a Slurpee and some chips. We meet at the checkout and, he tells me thank you. When we walk out of the store, he turns around and gives me a hug. And, I just tell him, I love you, be safe out there. I don't go into who I am, what I do, or anything like that. He doesn't even tell me his name. Well, this was like a Tuesday or a Wednesday. That Friday, I was to be in Seguin at my friend's church speaking to his youth. And a friend of mine had reached out to me like Thursday, and she's like, hey, I have this mom. She's struggling with her boys. Can I pass on her information? I said, absolutely. So I reached out to this mom, and she's telling me that she's struggling mainly with her oldest. And I said, hey, look, I'm talking in Seguin on Friday. I mean, I would love for it if y'all could come. I understand it's far, or I can just come out to your house. She's like, no, we go to Seguin all the time. We'll be there. So Friday comes, and I'm getting ready to speak. And here comes the mom with her 2 boys. And I looked at him, I'm introducing myself to the mom, and I looked at the boy and I said, you look so familiar to me. And he said, I'm the boy at the store. And I just like busted out crying. And the mom was like, what store? What are y'all talking about? So I tell her what happened. And she said to him, why didn't you tell me about this? And he's like, I don't know. And she said, well, did you know that his name was Noah? And I said, no. And, I then told him, I said, that was not a coincidence that you and I met. I said, God has something for you, and it's not a coincidence that you're here. So, he holds a really, really special place in my heart. I'm now connected to him, and it's just great.
Yeah, it's amazing how
Mhm.
God puts these little dots together, right? I had a mentor of mine, call them God dots, right? And you're
Yeah.
like, okay, I see this random chance meeting as we would think it, but God putting this, moment there to be able to connect him, to be able to hear the gospel message at this youth group, and the dangers of fentanyl, that we don't always get to see the eternal effect of these things, but we're praying for Noah that his
Mhm.
faith will be strong, that he will, he was there that night that for the 2-year anniversary,
Yes, he
right? To
was.
be there to hear you present the gospel again, to a crowd of people that was there, which I think is a beautiful, like, how God puts those things together that you could never arrange on your
No.
own, but because you have a
Yeah.
story, because you have a testimony, God is now using that testimony to reach other kids and hopefully have long lasting effects. Perhaps Noah, when he grows up and has kids, that story continues to live on. I mean, that's the beautiful thing that God does,
Yeah.
and we've seen that quite a bit, haven't we?
Oh, yeah.
With the way the message of Noah and those things. Do you have any other great stories like that of how God has just used the message of Noah to continue to connect? I know many of his friends have been there at different events that we've been at, just to hear the message and support. Some of them having their own church services and their own worship times and things like that. It's been really cool to see how God is using it for his kingdom. When you're going into schools, you can't present the gospel, particularly in a school. You're really just, it's fentanyl awareness. But when you get to step outside of that, those relationships lead us towards the gospel.
Yes, yes. What's so great about, even though, I have to be mindful on how I speak at schools, there's a part in my presentation where I say my pastor's wife when she
Mm-hmm.
got to my house, right? And I think that turns on a light bulb for a lot of kids, because after the presentation, kids are lining up to pray for me, pray with me, pray for the project. It's awesome, So, like, God is still the number one, you know,
Yeah. Focus
focus.
behind the scenes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. So, um, it's amazing.
Yeah, it is. And my Tara's been a major part of it. You had other pastors in the area that have been a major part of ministering to you guys in the midst of that. And I remember, that night getting to come onto the scene with you guys, and just a sense of kind of shock, and that kind of comes over you in those moments. And one of our old church members happened to be the social worker that
Yeah.
came up at that moment
Yes.
to. It was just neat how God, just in so many ways, has had his hand in your life to protect you from. Y'all had just kind of come back into church life and really gotten back involved, and Tara and I getting to connect with you guys again to be able to help walk through some of those things with you, right? And
Yeah.
getting to connect with different pastors in the area. There's one young man I remember just, being on fire for the Lord to get this message out to other people, and seeing a revival in a younger generation, that even through tragedy, God can still, out of that brokenness, produce fruit
Yes.
in a lot of
Yeah.
different ways.
So, yeah, I was able to help Moses get a prayer group started at Johnson High School. He is just on fire. He really cares about his peers and their souls.
Mhm.
And he's amazing. I mean, he's a teenager.
Right.
That he's still a knucklehead at sometimes. He's not perfect, but you don't have to be perfect, and
No,
that's a beautiful thing.
none of us are. Yeah.
So at Noah's 1 year, he did pretty much put on his own little sermon
Worships.
there,
Yeah.
like, yeah, where 5 boys gave their life to Christ, and that was awesome.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. How are you doing? 2 years in,
yeah,
and it's daily you remember Noah and you
oh
think
yeah,
about Noah.
yeah.
And this would have been what year for him? It would have been his junior,
This would be his senior year.
his senior year.
Yeah.
Yeah. How are you doing with handling the emotions of a mom who's lost a baby?
Yeah. Um, it's tough. But our counselor, our therapist told us that year 2 is the hardest year, right? Because in year 1, you're in shock still. You're still trying to process everything. But thankfully, because we have God in our lives, you know, just the assurance, just the what's the word?
Well, there's a certainty
we're
that
just
you know.
covered, like you're like a big hug, It's not that we're not struggling with losing Noah, but it's a we're still at peace,
Mm.
It's hard for me when I'm not booked up, so when I have a day where I don't have anything booked, I'm like, I could literally stay in bed all day, stare at Noah's picture and just cry. And sometimes I do, it's really hard that this is his senior year and watching all his friends play football, and have their parking painted.
Yeah,
Yeah,
parking spot.
yeah, like man, like that could have been Noah, right? But I'm excited for them,
Yeah. And isn't that such a strange place to be? You're so
Yeah.
excited for his friends who they've been, I think, great in this process, just trying to be a support and encouragement and not forgetting Noah and these things. And so there's like a joy. You see them thriving in their senior year, but then there's this little piece,
Yeah.
that's missing that
Yeah.
I wish I was involved in that. Senior moms
Yeah.
tackling your kids on the football field or
Yeah.
those sort of things.
Yeah.
And any advice you would give to moms going through this, because it's a lot.
It's literally a day by day. I don't know if I have any advice that's going to put, there are tons of moms that I know in my situation, and I just always trying to be that light for them, like there is hope,
And if you don't have faith, like if you don't have both Jesus and that personal relationship, because you can't really have a support group in your room every day to be there for you, even though you have, I think, a great support group, your family, your church family, the fentanyl moms community, because there are many of them that have lost loved ones that can give that advice too. But there's only one that can be truly in your heart, and that's Jesus Christ, right? In that. And so it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
It's okay you don't have to pretend like you're perfect.
Right.
All the time. It's okay to be in your room and want to spend the day there, but you can't stay there day 2.
Right.
You got to get back up.
Yes.
And you got to keep living life, and you got to keep pressing forward to, not let this memory die.
Yeah. That was one thing I knew right away, that, we have 3 other children, and I knew that I didn't want them to see me in this depressed state. I didn't want my grief to fall on them. I didn't want Jolene especially to look at me and say, this is how we're supposed to do it, right? So I wanted to be an encouragement to her. And that's hard, I lost my baby. Yes, I want to just ball up every day, but also she's my baby too.
Yeah.
And they're here. Noah's not, and, Brandon and I don't regret anything. We don't sit and do the would've, could've, should've, we feel like we were the best parents we knew to be. We did everything we could. And so now it's time for us to raise the ones that are here, because back then it was all about Noah. And even though it's still about Noah, it's also their life, it's
learning from the things that Noah, the best of Noah, and helping that stay alive, right? And the struggles to, how can we help our younger crew that you have that have so much energy and so much life? How do you help them not go through the same struggles
Yeah.
that he did, right? How
Yeah.
can I bring the best and put those things that were the worst out of the way. And I think one of the ways in the midst of what you're describing is one of the ways I think God helps us cope with grief is we stop thinking about ourselves and we start serving others. And that's really what you're doing as a mom, is serving Jolene and Elnora and all your kids. And like, no, I'm gonna take care of Mordecai and pour into his life for the future and plant seeds that God's going to use to bring to life and keep them in that. Because I imagine that one of the hardest things about this grieving process, and one of the reasons they say year 2 is the hardest, is there's an initial like love and energy you get from other people that are just caring for you, and they're there and they're bringing meals and they're checking on you, and you're still in shock and you don't even know what to process with them yet.
Yeah.
But then year 2, I mean, they love you and they want to support you, but that begins to be less frequent and it becomes to be less in the light of people's just thoughts and then it really, now all the emotions begin to hit you of he's gone and he's not coming back, and it's senior year and he's missing out on running out of the helmet and running on the football field and the band playing the fight song and those things. And it can be challenging. It really is. And that's what I love about Forever 15 is you're not just saying, this is a story that I'm going to hold on to. I want to show other people the best of what God has for you. And it's not fentanyl.
Yeah.
It's not experimenting. It's not living your life carelessly. It's living your life with a purpose that's going to give you, a future. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
Thank you. Yeah. So, one of the ways that we would get Noah to do just about anything, right, was we'd bribe him with shoes. I would bribe him with shoes. I remember he was going into his freshman year at Johnson, and he texted me. He said, "Mom, I'm in a class with all sophomores." And I'm like, "That's great." And he's like, "No, it's geometry." And I'm like, "Good. You already took algebra in middle school. Like, you have to take geometry." And he's like, No, I'm going to get out of this class. And I was like, "No, Noah, like, let's talk about it when you get home." And he's like, "No, I'm going to go talk to the principal right now. I'm going to go talk to my counselor." And I'm like, "Hey, what if we talk shoes?" And he's like, "I'm listening." So that's now something that we've brought into the project as well. When I get a struggling teenager reach out to me and they don't want to go to rehab, I say, "Hey, can we talk shoes?" If you do this, we'll get you that, and talking shoes to kids is like, I mean, you might as well give them $1 million, right? It's like what it is to them. And it's a pair of Air Forces. So we've given out a few of those, whether, they've gone to treatment or they're volunteering with the program.
Why do you think they're so reluctant to go to treatment? Like, I know many people are, counseling or whatever, but kids especially.
I think just being away, I get that a lot from, some teenagers that if they're going to go, they don't want to go far, I think just being away, it's scary,
Yeah. And that, FOMO, fear of missing out on things that are going on here and there. But many times they keep living on the edge of this. At some point, this addiction is going to ruin their life. And I don't think, many kids think they're invincible, and many adults think they're invincible. And unfortunately, that comes, crashing down. What is something that something else that Forever 15 Project does to raise awareness? Obviously, speaking all over the world. I think actually Brandon went before the congressional meeting. How was that?
That was crazy. Yeah, they reached out to me. They wanted me to do it initially. Well, we're driving in our car, and I get this email, and I'm like, "Who's Jim Jordan?" And Brandon goes, "What?" And I said, "I got this email from Jim Jordan."
I love that you have no idea who Jim Jordan is. You're like, Jim Jordan? Is that like Michael Jordan's brother?
Yeah, I was like, I have no idea. So he pulls over, grabs the phone out of my hand, and he reads the email, and he's like, "This can't be real." So he like Googles the phone number and it shows a Washington number. And he's like, call them back right now. And so I call and they want me to talk in front of the Judiciary Committee. And I'm like, no. Like, I know nothing about politics. I'm not a political person. You want Brandon. Brandon is who you want. And at this point, Brandon's not done any presentations. He's not been in front of the media at all. Like, here I am doing news interviews, going to presentations, this and that. And he's like, you want me to speak? And I'm like, yeah. And if you know Brandon, I mean,
I know Brandon, and he does not, he's quiet. He's a quiet guy.
Yeah.
Which you probably need in your life, right? You have a big personality, and you need that quiet, strong guy there. But yeah, I was so impressed that he got up there.
Yeah. I mean, after he spoke there, I was getting text messages from like my ex-in-laws and those grandparents, like, we didn't even know Brandon spoke. We didn't know he could talk. Like so many people were just in awe that he,
He did a great
was
job.
able to do that, So yeah, we spoke to the Judiciary Committee. We are currently working with state senators and our representative to pass certain other laws that didn't get passed in the last session. But there is a law here in Texas that a minor can refuse treatment and a parent cannot do anything about it. And that was something that we personally went through with Noah. So that's something that we definitely want to change because we get a lot of families who are dealing with that.
Mm-hmm.
1 second their kid wants to go to rehab, but the second they say no, it's like their hands are tied. And that's not right. That's not right at all, because I have to sign off a permission slip for my kid to go on a field trip. But I need my kid's permission to save their life. Yeah. It's so backwards.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and they're denying life-saving treatment, especially when it comes to addiction, sort of issues. Like, I don't think people realize how addicting those things are, that it doesn't take much. This summer I got a chance to speak at a youth camp, and one of the policemen came in talking about vaping and just the dangers of vaping and how inside of vape now people are lacing them with fentanyl, lacing them with methamphetamines and cocaine. That when it was this poor one girl that vaped for the first time, but it had been laced with something, and she was addicted to meth. And just the path that her life took from just a $20 vape that she bought with someone else that was already loaded.
Yeah.
That she did. And again, what you were saying earlier, don't take something that you don't know is from a trusted source.
Yes.
And you can't trust the people that are selling you things and then that nature. And how addicting those things are. And the fact that we as parents can't help our kids, especially when at the beginning they're willing, we can't get them into treatment and get them into help that is going to save their life. That we have to watch them crumble, or we have to see them OD and then go back and do something very similar again. And it's heartbreaking that we can't do more to help them in that. And so that's one of the ways, as far as parents, getting informed about legislation, making fentanyl an issue that is actually something that people are informed about, both from the street level version, but also, we need to do some things to help make it harder for these things to get into our country. We need to do things to help drugs be a factor that, how many kids have died from fentanyl or drug overdose in our county even this year, and how tragic it is that even one passes away, but we had 5 in one summer. I think that's unimaginable that these kids' future has been cut short by something like that.
We have a friend. He's a retired cop, and he, does conference. He speaks, right? He's a speaker now. He's called Tall Cop Says Stop, but he calls these over-the-counter vapes that you can just go into the Poco Loco and buy. He calls it drugstore heroin because of all the different things that are put in there. Nothing's regulated, What you read on the box is just so it can get sold in the store. Mm-hmm. They put what the government wants to see on the box, but they're not regulated. You don't know what's in it, So yeah, it's scary. It's scary.
popcorn lung, and just all these incredible things that people just don't know about. I didn't know about until I went to a presentation about that. And so I would encourage anybody listening to our podcast just to go, man, I want to know more about this. I want to hear more about these issues that are happening with. Don't think that you're immune. Don't think that your kids are not going to face these things if they go to school or they go off to college or they just are at a friend's house having a sleepover. That if we don't teach them early enough, then they're going to be kind of tempted to, oh, my friends are trying this. Why don't I try it? Oh, don't be a chicken. If they don't have that internal desire to live for God, then it's so easy. And it only takes once to all of a sudden their life is changed forever. And
not even a full pill. Like you could take a quarter of the pill, because these things are not made professionally. The quarter that you take could have all the fentanyl in it,
Yeah. Is that still a big problem with people making them homemade pills like that?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Here in Hays County, we have seen a decrease in deaths and overdoses. But yeah, it's still happening and it's still there,
But I think it's something that's directly accounting to the moms, especially of that summer, and just the police seeing the issue that's really out there. Yeah. I mean, when it hits young people, it makes people wake up and go, we need to find the source of these things and the makers of those things and find the trail of how it's getting our area. Mm-hmm. I mean, no one wants to be known as the overdose capital of the world.
Yeah.
That's not a way we want to be labeled.
I know.
And so just seeing, I think because of Noah's and the ability of y'all to go in front of the cameras and really get that message out, I've seen a lot of just fruit of that decrease coming down since then.
Yeah.
And not just you, other moms and other dads. And I even saw a billboard today, remembering, I think, Cam or somebody like that, right?
It changed for Cam.
It changed for Cam, where it's like, man, praise the Lord, it's still up there, still in the front, right? I know you guys have done billboards all over the state and just keeping awareness out there. Like, just ask my mom. If you want to know the dangers of it, just ask my mom and doing that. And so just keeping that awareness going. Are there any other laws that are coming up that we need to be aware about?
To be honest, that's a Brandon thing.
Oh, yeah. True.
Yeah. I did go to Kyle's city council back in February about having Narcan in all of our parks. Mm-hmm. They did approve that, so there are Narcan boxes in some of the parks here.
So for people asking, Narcan is something that can directly help with fentanyl. Is that right?
Yeah, any opioid. Yes,
okay.
It can reverse an opioid. It can.
Not always.
Yeah, it's not guaranteed. Reverse an opioid overdose. Yes, and we stock it at home. We give it out to the community wherever we go for free. You can buy it over the counter, but it does cost $50. And, for a lot of people, $50 is a lot of money, So if you need some, reach out to us. If you have kids in college, please send them with Narcan because that's a whole new ball game for them, And what I wanted to touch on a bit ago, I don't remember exactly what it was you said. I think something like, don't think that it can't happen. Early on when Noah passed, a friend that he grew up with, the mom said something like, so-and-so's too smart to ever do something like that, right? And that angered me, because Noah was smart, and it hit me. I took it personal, right? I got over it. But Brandon and I were remembering that comment a few months ago, and he made a good point, like, yeah, your kid might not do drugs now or ever, right? But what happens when you get into your first relationship, right? And you're so in love, you're in awe of this person, and y'all go somewhere, and let's say your girlfriend offers you, hey, let's do this together, at this party, blah, blah, blah. You're so in love, and you may have not ever thought about ever doing drugs, but because you don't want to disappoint this person, you're gonna do it, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just really naive to think.
Yeah, it's pretty arrogant to think of too, because what I've experienced with drugs and things like that, not myself, but from counseling different people, is it every race, every gender, every educational status, every financial status, and strata deal with drugs.
Yeah.
I mean, every one of them deals with suicide and drugs. It's just everywhere, and so and especially with fentanyl. What's so foolish about that? I think that statement is that fentanyl, they think they're taking an aspirin.
Yes.
They think they're taking Skittles, candy, or these slang names for stuff that hide what's really in there. I mean, yeah, you can't just say, yeah, I'll take some Skittles, because you don't know exactly what they're going to give you. Or you think it's going to be the rainbow of flavors, and it's this colored different pills that are inside of this thing. And now you're stuck with, I asked for it, I wanted it, now I'm going to chicken out of it. I mean, it's not about smart or unsmart. It's about peer pressure. It's about being informed on these different issues. And if you're a parent and you're not informing your kids about these issues, then man, I would encourage you to start now, right? And even silly things like pornography, right? If you're not saying that's not a silly thing, it's a dangerous thing, but this is a good picture and this is a bad picture.
Yes.
Pictures that are glorifying to the Lord are going to bring beauty to the creation of God. Pictures that are evil are going to glorify things that are sinful.
Yes.
And if we're not making that case known to our kids early, the world is making it known to them through TV and through social media and through TikTok. I mean, all these different things, their friends in the locker room and these things. If they're not educated in these things, then it's really easy to fall in those areas. And,
it is.
And it's just a danger. That's why what you're doing is so important. Going into schools. What has been the best experience you've had in the school where you've just seen God do something cool with a group of people based upon y'all's presentation? Has there been an interaction with a kid that's just been like blown you away, or a teacher?
I mean, we've been to so many schools. No. There's one thing that that I will never forget. I went to a school in San Antonio, and I walked into the gym, and the kids weren't in the gym yet. We're still setting up, but I'm looking around at all the basketball pictures of all the basketball players, and there's this kid that my eyes are just drawn to him, and I'm like, that looks like Noah. And when I said, I said the kid before looked like Noah, this kid looked like Noah to a T. So I walk up to his banner. His name is Noah Rodriguez.
Whoa.
Yeah. Noa Rodriguez. And I just start crying. And the deputy that I work with was like, what's going on? And I'm like, fuck. And he's like, oh my goodness. So he goes and talks to the coach that was in the gym. And I don't know what he's talking about. I'm having my moment, and they bring the kid to me. Yeah, they brought this young man to me, and I was able to give him a hug, and we cried, and it was so nice. Like, I have to show you that picture.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it was my Noah. Like,
yeah, I think it's just God showing off, just going, hey, what you're doing is making a difference, and making a difference in a bunch of different Noahs, but just make a difference for, this kid's never going to forget this interaction.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be the thing that helps him say no to this thing, or say yes to this thing.
Yes.
Right. And then that's one of the things that we were in Path Group together, talking about, marriage and all these cool things. And, we were talking about how saying yes to an event means you're saying no to your marriage. Right. Yeah. And so in that case, like, you saying yes to interact with this Noah, even through the tears and through that, might help him say no to something else later on. Right. And so again, it's that beautiful dichotomy that God gives us, is like, us saying yes to this takes away from this, but us saying no gives us more time to do these things. And that's being confident that God, and I think a lot of times when God is giving you this eyes to see Noah in someone else, it's him saying, this is an interaction I want you to press into, and I want you to be a part of. And that's just cool how the Holy Spirit does that, to bring us to a point where we get to speak our message to people that you didn't know them from anything, but now you have this bond
Yeah.
with them that's special and that hopefully will make a difference.
Yeah. And
in
I
their life.
think, when kids hear our presentation, it's coming from a mom and a dad, right? And we already know as parents, when we talk to our own kids, it's like, or like coming from a cop or a teacher. But when it's coming from somebody, a mom and a dad who truly went through the experience, like it's different, right? So tons of kids reach out to us, tons of kids. And it's like, I truly care for them, like my heart. When Noah was here, I was so judgy, when his friend group changed, because they didn't look like him, they didn't talk like him, they weren't raised like him. I was like that. And it took losing him, to see that these kids are just like him. They look different, they talk different, but extending that grace. It's something I've had to learn,
Yeah.
So,
what's amazing about the way the Bible talks about it is that God doesn't look on the outward appearance, he looks on the heart, right? And that's really what I think he leads us all to as we mature in him is like, man, we need to look at the heart of people more than we do skin color or tattoos or whatever it might be. Like God's the written eternity in the heart of all of us. And so how do we minister and love on people in a way that is truly from him? And then he'll make the difference. He'll make the impact.
Exactly.
And all those things. Can you, as we're getting ready to kind of close up, can you think about like your family's been great through this process. So what message would you tell them about, what they've meant to you guys throughout this process as well?
To my family?
Yeah, your family's been so important and so amazing, right, through this whole process.
Yeah, they have. Yeah. We've always been a close family. But I guess we kind of thought in a way too, like this could never happen to us, But it's brought us even closer. My parent, something I've always, prayed for was to see my dad back up on a stage playing his horn, right? My parents have come back to Christ. My dad plays at his church, not every Sunday, but on special occasions. And my sister, and her family gave their life to Christ, and now they attend our church here, and it's been wonderful. Like how God used us and how we chose to deal with our pain. They saw, like God's got them, God's got us, and
yeah, that's a beautiful thing. And
yeah, it is.
And what's fun about church life, to me, one of the most amazing benefits about church life, besides reorienting ourselves to Christ week on week, is just adding to that family, right? You have a church family now that loves you and surrounds you. And what is that meant to have a church family around you?
Like I can't give fellowship enough credit. Like the family here, I mean, we have just felt all the love, all the support, like even year 2 out, no, we're not getting our meals, but y'all are more than welcome to bring us meals. But
pimento sandwiches,
yes. Extra jalapenos. But if we ever need something, you guys are quick to jump in and help, whether it's with the kids or just anything, really. I mean, literally anything. It's been great. Like I have not felt abandoned, like when you speak about being a family and doing for, your brother or your sister in Christ. Like, I have felt that the whole time,
Yeah.
It's been wonderful. We love it here. We love
Mhm.
everybody here.
Yeah. We love you guys too. I think it's always so fun to see God put us in situations that with church members or different people that just, it's amazing. Like, I remember pulling up to y'all's house. I don't know if I was delivering dinner or just bringing something over, and all of a sudden you come storming out, right? And I'm just like, and for some reason I parked like around the corner down this way because I think some other people were there. There's a bunch of cars there, and I come around the corner, and then you just come out, and like, okay, I guess it's time for us to take a little walk together, right?
I was like having some kind of anxiety,
panic attack. I think it's like
something.
a panic or.
And I opened the front door, and you're standing there, but like the sun is like, so it was like this beaming light around you, and it was like the perfect time. Yeah.
And you're having that moment. It's like, hey, let's take a walk.
Like, truly appreciate, because I, even in the shock, I can remember all the truth that you spoke to me, and that really helped, like.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, no, that wasn't me though. It was like the Lord timed out that this light. I didn't make this light at this point, or I got delayed a little bit here to have that moment where it's like, I don't think I even knocked yet. It was like,
no.
Oh, hey, right? I'm coming around the corner, and they're like, oh, hey, you okay? And it was just God arranged this setting to be able to encourage you, to encourage me, to be like, man, God is so cool how He does these things without even us trying it in there, right? And that happens hundreds of different times, throughout our lives. If God at the right moment has a person there to give that hug, or just to see them and be like, you know what, I shouldn't be acting the way I am. I shouldn't be having this thought the way that I am, because you get a lot of hate. And it's crazy. It's so crazy to think about in the midst of all that you guys have gone through with Noah, just the amount of people still hate and they still troll. And, you can't give your thoughts and your heart to those things.
No.
Right? You can't let the approval of men or the disapproval of men affect your heart. You have to just keep walking, enduring through that. Has it been hard for you, enduring through some of those comments that just come in?
Early on, it was very hard for me, because you want to sit there and read the comments, and it hurt. People were saying bad things about me and about my parenting, and just all kinds of stuff, and it took Brandon to tell me, hey, don't read the comments. And that was hard. It was hard because I wanted to know what people were saying or thinking of me, right? But then, I was talking to just some other people that I've known. I'm from here. I grew up here. People know me. People know my family. They know that what's being said is not true. I don't have to justify anything, God's going to do it for me.
Yeah, the Lord's your defender.
Yeah.
And that's such a hard thing as a leader or as someone that is all of a sudden thrust into the public eye is, I'm doing this for the Lord, not for me.
Right.
And the approval of man doesn't mean anything to me. And the disapproval, as long as I'm walking as God wants me to walk, then I have to be that way. And the people that many times that make those comments, they don't know you. Right. And then sometimes they know you and what they said is true. And you're like, you know what? Maybe I could have done better at this, or maybe I shouldn't have done this, but I can't go back and do that. All I can do is try to honor the Lord through the grief and through the message that's going out to others, so that others don't have to go through this. I heard a phrase, I don't remember who, it might have been Tim Keller. I can't remember who it was. It said, smart people learn from others' mistakes, because everybody learns from their own mistakes, right? And so the hope of Forever 15 is that, man, this fentanyl poisoning that happened to my son, like, I don't want you to have to go through the nightmare of what I've had to go through. I want you to be able to start now educating your kids to hopefully plant seeds in their hearts so that they won't have to go through these things. We want to hopefully change a law that can give you the power to be able to help your children make it through these things that are out there. And so, man, we just commend you guys. You guys are doing great work.
Thank you.
Through Forever 15. How could people, if they want Forever 15 to come to their school or come to their youth group or to come to some sort of thing, how do they get in contact with you guys?
You can go to our website at forever15project.org, and that's forever15project.org. Right now, it's just me and Brandon. So if you send us an email, you'll get one of us. Yep. My personal cell phone number is on my website, and I make that available to everyone, especially students, so you can send me a text. Yeah. We're not too good to not text you or email you back, this message is important. We do not charge for anything that we do just because the message is so important to us. Yep. And that's the number one thing. So you can reach us there, send us an email. We will go anywhere.
Yeah. And, we're praying for you guys. And what's the biggest need that Forever 15 Project has right now? Just getting to the places, like the money to travel and get to those places. And
funding would help a lot.
Because it takes money to eat and when you travel somewhere, and childcare for the kids, or bringing a nanny along.
A big need. Yes. But thankfully we found a few youth in the church that have been wonderful. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Over that, because that as God has this message going out, you still have your kids that you want to love on, and having someone that you can trust to, it's going to be a good influence on them, when you're not there. Yep. Is so important. So I want to pray for you guys. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks
and being on the podcast and just telling the story about all that God's doing through from tragedy to getting a message out to really help people and give hope to people as well. So let me pray for you, Brandon, for Forever 15, Lord. Thank you so much for Janel and Brandon, Lord, and for their family, Lord, and for the Forever 15 Project, Lord. I thank you for the work that they do, helping this important message go out to schools and to youth groups and to youth around our area. Lord, I pray that you will bless them. I pray that you'll give them encouragement. Lord, I pray that every time that they speak the message about fentanyl, that, Lord, people will hear about you as they present the gospel so clearly in so many cases, Lord, even in public schools, Lord, that the message of the true hope that they can have is found in Jesus. And so I pray that you'll bless them in that, Lord. Thank you for just giving them beauty from ashes, Lord, just as you've said in your word, from the most difficult and challenging situations, Lord, you can bring forth your beauty in there. So I pray, Lord, that Noah and who he was will always be remembered, Lord, that we'll continue to take the encouragement, Lord, through you, even in the midst of this tragedy. So thank you, Lord, for this time. I pray a blessing over them, and Lord, pray that your will be done in your name. Amen. Thanks, Janel.
Thank you.